A win for flammable cladding apartment owners. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here. Grab your stein of coffee and let's go through this article from Domain that was sent to me by a viewer regarding, well, apartment owners with combustible cladding. And apparently it's a legal victory, so I'm quite interested to hear about this. Now, if you're not familiar, there are a whole range of, well, non-conforming product issues in Australia. They've manifested in wiring, dodgy wiring. Remember, all through Masters, houses were catching on fire because of the dodgy wiring. You've got flammable cladding, either in the aluminium composite that can burn and spread flame up. You've got the styrofoam type of product, polypropylene, polyurethane, all different ones that are used, where they're essentially using polystyrene instead, which can melt and catch fire. And here we have, well, a win for apartment owners, so I'm quite interested to see how they deal with it. Now, depending on the situation can depend on the element of risk. We saw in Melbourne where facades went up. This is, people smoking after work, leaving it in an ice cream container. That caught on fire and then it went up the facade. It spread. It presented a risk there because that is a place where people have barbecues, where people eat, where people smoke. And it's where people are sleeping in the building. Whereas if you put it on the outside of a commercial building, maybe trimming some glass, we used it around entries. There's a Lorna Jane in the Queen Street Mall. You can see the bright pink. That's a similar type of product. Now, that presents a much less risk than other locations. That one actually is fire rated, or at least it should be, according to what we specified. You can get different types of product. We had a job we did here in Mary Street, where we clad these columns. We wanted to get a nice aesthetic, and we had to make sure that the aluminium composite that was used was fire rated. So if people were running past, because it was an egress path, that these things couldn't catch on fire, it wouldn't impede their progress, their ability to get out. And you get a good certifier they catch that. But it's a little different, particularly on multi-res buildings, and I suspect one of the biggest issues is design and construct and inadequate site supervision, and sometimes people making honest mistakes, or certification coming from overseas, which isn't actually accurate. There's also, particularly with the composite cladding types, the aluminium composites, there's issues with regard to the actual methodology of assessing it for its flammability. There's some issues in the Australian standard and how you measure it. Okay, so let's have a look. Apartment owners win a legal victory over combustible cladding. A group of apartment owners battling to have combustible cladding replaced on their buildings have won a landmark legal victory, giving hope to the thousands more facing similar dangers. In an Australian first, a major building company, which installed timber PVC biowood cladding on 4 multi-story apartment blocks in Ryde, has lost its appeal against being forced to rectify the work. Okay. I'm assuming, is this it here? Is this it here? I mean, I've used this stuff before. I've got it on my house. I've used a similar product, just as some decking replacement. You'll see it when you drive past the Maccas. It's because it's UV stable, so it's not going to fade. It's probably easy to work with real timber. Sure, you can cut it and nail it together, but I prefer real timber myself. I don't think I'd use it again. But there we go. I mean, if they've lost that appeal, because my understanding was that product was deemed suitable, and now they've come and retroactively made changes. So that's the risk that's coming about in construction, everyone, if they retroactively come back and make changes. Further, if it doesn't reach an agreement with the owners on a timeline for the remediation, a date will be set for them by the state authorities. This is a precedent for Australia, said the victorious owners legal... Sorry, getting tired today. The victorious owners lawyer, Fiyas Shafiq, of J.S. Muller & Co.'s lawyers. This is the first reported case where a court or tribunal has upheld a finding that a particular type of cladding is combustible. The outcome of the case represents a win for owners' corporations and sends another timely warning to builders and developers that use of combustible cladding is fraught with risk and carries with it substantial consequences. Concern about combustible panels follow the catastrophic 2017 blaze at London's Grenfell Tower, in which 72 people died after fire raced up the building fueled by aluminium composite cladding. In Melbourne, a cladding fire at the Lacrosse building in 2014 saw owners win $5.7 million in damages. And here's an interesting thing about the Grenfell Tower in London, and I didn't realise this until just recently. I'd watched this documentary about the style of construction that it's using. The reason why they clad all these old public housing projects in the UK in the aluminium composite was to provide additional protection, because a lot of the precast paneling systems they were built with back in the day it wasn't constructed properly, it wasn't tied back properly, it was rusting, causing a lot of issues, to try and waterproof it. So this was a massive public housing initiative that was done under design and construct methods, done quite shoddily, and you're still seeing the ramifications of this decades later. And that's one of the things they talk about. In that documentary, they discuss about the fire risk, and you see it here manifesting. But the combustible cladding, I mean, that's the problem. And I've encountered that on jobs where you would specify a particular product as the architect, as the designer, and then it will get replaced out with a cheap alternative. And say you're in a design and construct relationship. This means that you've got the builder, and then under the builder is the architect. You work for originally you work for a developer, then you come and work under a builder. You're novated to them. You're now responsible to the builder to finish the project off. So if you specified something with the client thinks that's what they're getting, then the builder directs you to change it out. You can't communicate back to the original developer. The builder has to communicate that. It's their responsibility, not yours. If you do, then there's contractual breaches that you're occurring. It can get really messy. Really messy. I had one situation where I was working with a builder, and they insisted on detailing something a particular way. I wasn't happy with it. I said, no, I'm not going to draw it like that. If you do it your way, you're going to get water come up underneath, it'll flash in, and then it'll go down, and it'll cause a health and safety issue in a corridor connecting to one hospital to another new extension. What do you think happened? I'm not working with them anymore, am I? That's the risk. And then you can work with other people in design and construct that are very good to work with, that know what they're doing. It depends on the people. I don't think it's the best solution for accommodation that people are living in. I think for unique and particular situations, it can have advantages, particularly for specialist skills. But we'll have to see. So, I mean, and the issue is substitution. Because often you'll work hard, you'll specify a product, and then a substitute will be proposed, which is simply done by the old quality check of she'll be the same or she'll be cheaper. Or look, this product from China, which is exactly the same. Look. We had that happen with fridges. We'd specified some scope fridges on a job. The builder went and found cheaper ones from China. It all sounded good, but when you really got down into the nitty-gritty, for the warranty to work on those Chinese fridges, you had to turn them off every 2 hours. Useful, isn't it? Currently, there are 2 class actions underway in Australia against the manufacturers of cladding. And a call went out earlier this week from the peak body of apartment owners, the Owners Corporate Network, for other affected strata schemes to join. In this latest case, Lindsay Spencer, chair of the Owners Corporation of the Gardens at Putney Hill, developed by Fraser Property and built by Taylor Construction Group, said the owners and residents of the 148 apartments of the scheme were pleased and relieved at the verdict. They, Taylor and Fraser, appealed the original decision and that they should replace the panels, and now they've lost. We hope it ends here, he said. No one wants to live with this kind of risk to their safety. We hope this decision now makes the situation clearer for others living with combustible cladding. Other builders have to look at it and deal with it. I'm just thinking of the architect that specified it, how they're going, because it's going to go down to them, to where they specified it, then what information was provided. If all the documentation you provided, if the certifier said you could put that on that location, it was a suitable product, it's going to get messy, guys. This is going to get messy. In some ways, I'm very glad that I haven't done much work in the developer sector. I really am. We did one job with a developer right back when I started our firm, and he was just a dodgy guy. You know how you get that feeling? That feeling when you meet someone, you just don't trust them straight away. I should have gone with my instincts, but I was young. I was excited to actually get a first client. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake. The appeals panel of the New South Wales and Administrative Tribunal threw out an appeal by Taylor Constructions and Fraser Putney against an NCAT decision last year that the biowood cladding was combustible, posed an undue risk of fire spreading, and should be replaced. It ruled that any fire spread via the external walls where the biowood cladding is located could enter the building from the facade by windows and balconies from level to level. So if we have a look here... Well, yeah, no, it could. See here, look here. See how you've got this here, this would be the concrete slab. And then you've got a minimum distance that's required here to stop. If fire comes out here, it can't just come back in. You can either have the window coming all the way down and then you extend this out. But the problem is now that if this stuff catches on fire, it'll go in through the window. So it'll mitigate the benefit they've got there. See, they've got the same thing here. This should be fire rated. That should be fire rated. See, you've got the same step. All of these little things, these requirements in the construction of these buildings have all come about. They've all been engineered and designed, and they've been developed to mitigate the risk of fire spreading because people have died. People have died. Rachel did her thesis on fire disasters and how they affected legislation and how they dictated design. And it's quite interesting. She did an interview with the ABC radio about it a long time ago. So... there is one more possible appeal to the Supreme Court against the decision, but Taylor Construction would not say what it plans to do. We have no comment to make at this stage, said Stephen Williams, the General Manager Commercial. We're still reviewing the decision. Calls to the representative for Fraser Property were not returned. The company argued to the NCAT appeals panel that the building had already been issued with an interim occupation certificate which created a presumption that the works performed in the building complied with statutory warranties and all the relevant codes and standards. The panel, however, ruled, so it wasn't even interim, wasn't even a full. Anyway, the panel, however, ruled that occupation certificates do not prevent owners from suing for building defects. You're right, they don't. Mr. Shafiq said the decision has now set a precedent for the thousands more buildings with biowood panelling and other combustible cladding across Australia. It now means owners in my client's building and others can have more certainty to get on with their lives, he said. Combustible cladding presents a risk that if fire happens in a multi-story building and you don't have time to escape, that we saw what happened in Grenfell and the terrible sights of people throwing themselves out of windows with so many lives lost. Yes, that's true. That's true. But we're not... it's not a similar thing. That means you're going to get two... The risk here is you've got these three compartments here, these three sole occupancy units, which themselves are fire isolated, would go up. And then there'd be time to mitigate that from spreading. Although you've got here, I mean, this, if that's all the same stuff, that could go all the way up the building and that could catch through each one of these. So, I mean, you'd have to look at it. Just looking at this image, it doesn't look as potentially terrifying, as scary as Grenfell. It doesn't look as scary as that. They're looking at ways to mitigate it. But these are lawyers, you know. They're like journalists. They got, or YouTubers. They've got to focus on the doom, on the scariness. This product may look aesthetically pleasing, but people need to be able to safely sleep at night in their homes, and builders need to be careful. The two class actions currently running are against German-based Alucobond manufacturer 3A Composites and supplier Halifax Vogel Group, and against the Australian company Fairview Architectural, the supplier of polyethanol core Vertrabond panels based in Lithgow, New South Wales. Last month, Fairview announced it had entered involuntary administration. Aussie Administrator Karen Stiles said if a building had cladding, it could register to join the class action, which is independent of any other action the scheme might be taking. OCN supports owners' rights to pursue their full legal rights in terms of building defects, she said. Of course, it is wrong that they have to, unlike other consumers, saddled with faulty products like airbags or infinity cable, where the product is recalled by the manufacturer at their own cost. But that's the current state of Australian play, sadly. Hopefully, our owners' advocacy will improve the situation for future owners. Well, I can tell you one thing. This is going to definitely wake up a lot of people in the industry. A lot of people will be much more vigilant. But I'm thinking back on my projects. Have we specified this project? Could something come back out of the depths to get us? And I'm thinking, man, I don't think so. That's one advantage. I mean, the mining stuff is all pretty simple with what you're building. We've done a lot of that. The retail stuff, well, it kind of disappears pretty quick sometimes too. So that's a good advantage there. So I'm not particularly worried. I mean, architects want to chase this type of work, and I kind of really didn't chase it too often, to be honest. I always found that the people you had to deal with in multi-res to be a pain in the ass. The developers were so cheap, and oh, you had to deal with so many design tosses, you know. But I guess that's just me. Maybe there's a reason why, you know, we're doing education work, we're doing, you know, retail work, we're doing mining work. You know, the odd mix. What do you all think, everyone? A win for owners? Most certainly. We'll have to see how the industry responds. It's going to be interesting to see what the fallout for this is. We'll have to see what the builders do to their consultant team. That is what I want to keep an eye on. Have you used this product on any projects? What do you think about it? Do you think that's a flammability risk? And what did the certified, did he approve it? They should have checked it. They should have reviewed it. They should have written a report and identified all of these issues. Looks like they didn't. It's definitely going to be interesting. As always, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I've created here, there's a few ways you can. You can join the channel on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us using any of our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. I'll see you all in the next episode.